Hello and welcome to the I Can Do podcast with Benjamin Lee. We're here to talk about tips and strategies to have an I Can Do mindset. Life is what you put into it. Get the most you can. Here's your host, Benjamin Lee.
Welcome back. It is Money Mondays. Each Monday, we have a segment here on the I Can Do podcast where we talk about something related to finances in some shape or form. We've been spending a lot of time from the book of Proverbs in the Bible talking about wisdom. There's so much wisdom when it comes to our finances, about discipline, about loaning, about debt, about working hard, foresight, all of these things we have seen. And last week, we talked about opportunity cost. Every yes that I make will also cost a no, and vice versa. So if I decide to get something today, I may not be able to do something or get something later, a few months from now, a year from now, maybe even a few weeks. So we talked about opportunity cost. Now I want to talk about something else, something a little bit more quieter, something maybe even more powerful, living 1 month ahead. So I will say I have been directly influenced, obviously, by the Word of God. The scriptures teach us so much about money. I've also been listening to other podcasts. At the beginning of the year, my wife, Nikki, and I, we started using the YNAB, YNAB, You Need a Budget. Before that, we were using the Every Dollar app by Dave Ramsey, where we would allot different things in our budget, a monthly budget, and seek to make different plans with our money. And then we switched over to the You Need a Budget app. So from there, I learned about Jesse Meekum and his podcast and the Budget Nerds, which are connected to YNAB as well. And I've just learned a great deal. I follow them on Instagram, and they have a lot of different resources and things like that. In fact, when we started this last December, I believe, they had a lot of free classes and courses you could take online. If you're looking to figure out some more things with your budget, I highly recommend them. Full disclosure, I'm not getting compensated. I'm receiving no funds for recommending YNAB, but I'm just saying it because that's something that I am personally using. And one of the things that I keep hearing about from them is giving every dollar a name. In fact, I shared or reposted on my Instagram page earlier today. The money that we save is just money that we're going to spend in the future. And that really resonated with me as well, along with this idea of living 1 month in advance. So let's talk about this a little bit. This is something that we are practicing in our household. And so I will keep you up to date with what this looks like and how it's working. But this is really about being either reactive with money or being really intentional with money. And so one of the things that we have to look at is maybe even reshaping some of the stories that we tell ourselves, that maybe sometimes we can be bad with money, but maybe we're just being more reactive with money. So one of the things that I grew up with, and I believe I've mentioned this on the show before, one, we never talked that much about money. Two, it felt like we never really had a lot of money. Three, we often, probably most of my young life, we lived paycheck to paycheck. I can remember feeling the pressure, seeing my family, trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to cover this expense? There's still 2 weeks left in the month. How are we going to get through these last 2 weeks? Where is this money coming from? And I have to tell you, by experience, not just seeing it with my family, it is utterly exhausting. And there has to be a better way. Now, I started getting what's called an emergency fund. An emergency fund is having money set aside for an emergency. Now, if that is to work, you also have to define what exactly is an emergency. I have not always done that. Have you? Maybe you've fallen into that trap as well. So I would set aside, Dave Ramsey would often talk about having $1,000 emergency fund. Reading more up on this, he said, well, that's never truly been enough. But for so many people, $1,000 would be a large sum. So it's very clear that and I think most people need a lot more than just $1,000 for an emergency fund. But getting to that point, it did have a psychological impact. But there's also something else that we can start doing, because I would often think about, how are people saving 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund where, if they lost their job, they would have 3 to 6 months of coverage on housing, food, clothing, gas, all of that. And I think this is where, when we start thinking more about not just being reactive, but really intentional with our money, that's where things really begin to change. So this idea of living a month ahead is actually quite simple. So take, for example, I have one recurring bill and it costs me $5.40 every month. So in January, I'm going to get charged $5.40. So the idea of living a month ahead is having $10 or $11 in that account. So when I get my paycheck in January, there's already $5.40 sitting in that particular account or that particular category. Well, that's the idea of living a month ahead. So now I'm not thinking, okay, when January hits, I have to make sure that I have $5.40 in that account. I already know that, well, there's 2 months of money in that account. There's $10.80 sitting in that account. And so that's the idea in a small way of living 1 month ahead. And that's what YNAB really emphasizes, as I have been going through this for the past year, just giving a dollar every name. So this is something that I want to encourage you to start thinking about. Is it possible for you to live 1 month ahead? That by itself may seem really overwhelming because there's no way that we could live 1 month ahead. But I want to challenge you and say, really think about that. The reality is, we go to Chick-fil-A or we go to Buc-ee's here, an awesome gas station, restaurant, place, destination here really in Texas. If you're in Texas, you need to go to Buc-ee's. I think there's some in Georgia and Florida, and I believe in Alabama as well. But here's the thing. I can go to Buc-ee's and I can get a sandwich that costs me $8. Well, that's $5.40 for that one recurring bill that I could just leave in that category and keep me 1 month ahead. And so by practicing this, when I get my check next month, that's not paying the bills for January. That's actually going to be paying the bills for February. And I got to tell you, when I heard them, guys like Ernie talking about this on the Budget Nerds podcast, recommend that podcast as well. I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So last month's income is really paying for this month's life. I was like, yes, that is really cool. So that's something that I want to encourage you to try. Seeing that in my categories is something that makes me feel really good. And it is a psychological change where not everything has to be fully funded. But that's what I'm saying. If you start with a small category, $5, $10, $15, $50 category, say, okay, I'm just going to get 1 month ahead of that. I'll constantly stay 1 month ahead. Then you can slowly build into another one. There is something that feels really good of just seeing that money sitting there. And I think there's a big benefit for that because it really eliminates anxiety. It eliminates a lot of wondering, how is this going to get paid? What if my check is late? What if the direct deposit lands on a weekend? Or what if it doesn't get fully deposited until the Monday or something like that? So it just makes our lives a little bit more calm, and it helps us to see, oh, there's already money there. Another thing that I'm seeing too is it makes the money that's sometimes set in an emergency fund feel a lot more real. So you can have a large amount of cash in your emergency fund, but if it's not named, if it's not identified, and Every Dollar app talks about that as well, Dave Ramsey does, it's just money that's sitting there. And then you have to try to figure out, okay, what am I supposed to do, or what actually is this money going to be for? And so that's the idea of living a month ahead, where we slowly and surely fund the accounts. So the money that's paying for this month was actually from last month. The money for next month is just sitting there ready to go. Now, where should you begin? Well, that's why I started with a $5.40 category. Start something really small and fund that for this month and then for next month. And then when the next month comes, you fund it for the next month after that. That's how you stay 1 month ahead. And when that happens, I think you're going to notice a big shift. I think it will help eliminate conflict in our relationship. Since my wife and I started using this budget app together, about 90% of our arguments with money have decreased. And so it gives us a sense of preparation, and it gives us a sense of margin. There was a book that I read years ago called Margin. And having margin in our lives, we're not just always right up against the edge, goes a long way. And so that's the idea of living a month ahead. Doing that, it will give us more opportunity cost, and it will give us more opportunity to pay down debt. It'll give us more opportunity to share and to give to others who are in need. And it'll give us more wisdom where we don't have to maybe rush or charge something that's not really there. That's living a month ahead. And I believe that kind of living will certainly help us when it comes to, just having more peace in our lives. So that's the episode for today. I'm curious if you're willing to give this a shot, let me know. Recommendations, check out YNAB, YNAB. You Need a Budget. That's what I'm currently using. I've also used Every Dollar app by Dave Ramsey. So you may want to check that out and compare the two. The Budget Nerd podcast, you want to check that out as well. And the Jesse Meekum show, I'm listening to that too. So those are some other recommendations that I would encourage you to check out. And if you have questions, please let me know. I'm on a journey learning more about money, getting more comfortable talking about money. One of the reasons why I'm doing this, I just want to talk more about money. And if I'm learning something from someone else, I want to share that with you wherever you may be around the world. This is a global international podcast. And so if you have some tips, if some app has helped you out, please let me know, and look forward to learning from you. All right. Take care. And don't forget, Tuesday is Tuesday's takeaways, some thoughts from a book that I've read. Wednesday is Wednesday's word, a sermon. Thursday is Thursday's text. I'm just going to be reading from the book of Psalms. And Friday, a special guest, which is called Friday's Focus. So stay tuned, stay connected, Monday through Friday. I can do, so can you. Take care, and God bless.